Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we're going to be sitting down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching. Both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing. We have 1972's The Cowboys, directed by Mark Rydell. We have Let the Corpses Tan by Helena Kate and Bruno Fernazzi. We have newly released now in theaters, Borderlands by Eli Roth. And finally, Cuckoo, directed by Tillman Singer. So we've got two westerns and two newbies, folks. Let's see what Vincent Daly has to say about them. Stay tuned and enjoy the show. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going okay on my end of the table. How was your past week of movies, man?
I would say a pretty great week of movies,
Hey-o.
except for Borderlands. Borderlands. Definitely expected. I saw this, a good noon showing. Didn't know what walks of life would be in the theater, and
Were the
I
people
think
in there?
I think everyone was disappointed. Even
How
the,
packed percentage-wise would you say you feel?
maybe about half packed.
Half packed? All right, that's not bad.
But clearly not doing well in the box office. Clearly not doing well critically. I think fans are kind of lukewarm on it. But
Not loving it, yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it
screams television show.
Sure, absolutely.
Knowing almost nothing about the content.
yeah, exactly.
But it does scream TV show to me.
Yeah, and also screams just like, why? Why on earth? But other than that, I actually really enjoyed this week. I can't say I would have a fifth slot of what I would add into that. Folks listening for the next couple weeks, I think we're going to be a little bit just under the gun in scrambling
Well, this
on
whole
some
summer,
projects.
this whole summer, we barely had 5 a week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because we got other stuff going on. You've been super busy. I've been busy.
Yeah. But hopefully get back in the swing of things because I don't know. I love the concept of the 5. I do want to get back to it. I know no one's holding us to it.
I'm definitely not holding you to it.
Yeah. You're like, please, no, I gotta put them on the site. I like it as far as like a creative, challenge. Finding 5 movies put together. So.
Yeah, I mean, I love it just for the fact of getting numbers on this site.
Sure.
Sometimes I'm happy with how many movies we have, and then other times I'm just like, man, we're 2,000 short of what we ought to be.
Yeah.
But honestly, I mean, now that everything is on the site,
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, the fact that we have around 1,250, over 1,200 films on there rated. We have over 600 on podcast wise for audio. It's that's not an easy thing to do when you're one person.
Sure.
And it's not your day job.
Yeah, for real, absolutely. And now it's just about kind of curating the list, as far as compilations go.
Sure.
I like what you did with the must-watch, kind of giving some honorable mentions to, the good amount of films from 85 to 80.
Yeah, super usable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I added some compilations too, and I'll put some more on because we wanted to do that this year.
Mm-hmm.
We got some other stuff planned as well, which is cool. But okay, so this week, we got the 2 newbies, Let the Corpses Tan, which is a small-time Western that I never even heard of course. I don't think anybody has.
Super, super indie.
And we are finishing up John Wayne July in August, but we're finishing up John Wayne July.
It's just like last year. August.
It bleeds over.
Yeah, there's too many blockbusters, I think, in August for it to compete. But
Any opening notes, Vin?
I couldn't find an alternate title for this episode, but I think that was only in Borderlands' case. It was really just throwing it off. Otherwise, this was a really great week. I enjoyed this week a lot.
Ooh, okay, all right. I didn't want to say anything that John Wayne movies have been decreasing as we watch. and even starting with last year, Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Oh, right.
And then Stagecoach was a little less.
Oh, sure.
And then Red River was a little less.
Right.
And the Three Godfathers was a little less. So let's jump back to 1972 to see how the Cowboys do.
Yep.
Like I said, 1972, based roughly on a book.
Oh, yeah.
That came out a year or two prior.
Interesting.
I have a lot of information on this one.
Oh,
it might
yeah,
be a longer
sure.
review just to go back and forth. I don't know why. I mean, John Wayne's son had a podcast called The Wayne Cast for a very short period of time.
Okay.
He did a full podcast with Mark Rydell just a couple of years
Really?
ago. Dude's still alive. He's like 95.
Yeah.
The director's still alive. And then there was another podcast that was like 2 hours long, 2.5 hours long, where they had the whole cast for the 50th anniversary
okay.
2 years ago as well.
Sure.
So I learned a ton about
About
this
the
film,
Cowboys.
about the making, everything about it.
Wow.
First, though, why don't you just set us up, give us the rubric of this film,
Sure.
and we'll take it back and forth, the Cowboys.
Absolutely. Well, in a very brutal and bloody week, we have our very last John Wayne slot for the year, and it's a rare family-friendly Western. I say that because... And obviously it's about kids. It's kind of about moral lessons and definitely coming of age is what you can describe it as. But it's not necessarily losing all the edge that comes with a Western. Some parts of it are rounded. Some parts of it are sharp, and I feel like could be rounded coming off of early 70s films. But an interesting film worth your time. This comes from director Mark Rydell, who doesn't have a super long list of films. Primarily, he's famous for The Long Goodbye, 1 year after this, and later in 1981, directing the retirement home classic On Golden Pond.
Did you see the awards that thing has got?
Oh, yeah. That's
was
a super famous movie.
Yo, it was nominated for something like, I don't know, 8 or 10 Oscars.
Yeah.
Or
On
something
Golden
like
Pond
that,
is
yeah.
one of those, like, all-time classic movies.
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
I think it's on Prime right now.
Yeah. If you want to give it a go.
I almost watched it last night.
Nice. My real interest in covering this is all around our boy John Wayne, though. This month we've covered a lot of early establishing roles for him, but I wanted to take a big step towards the end of his career. While there are still a handful of movies he stars in during the 70s, including The Shootist and, dare I say, the Dirty Harry wannabe Brannigan. Go ahead, Tom. Pop off.
Well, I'm just saying. Brannigan, John Wayne, he's a Chicago cop, and it's set in London, okay? And it's just like, wow, what's going to happen here? It's fantastic. That was my big selling point for him.
Yeah, he's always trying to pitch me on Brannigan. The Cowboys is planted firmly in Wayne's older persona that came about most likely from 1969's Oscar-winning True Grit. I think that's... I don't know, maybe if 69 is too late in this old Wayne persona, but I feel like that is our final kind of closing persona of the Duke. That he is, he's fine being an old timer. I guess he's kind of always fine being, a stubborn man.
Yeah.
But that's I feel like it's cemented in True Grit, and we see that in here as well.
I think we talked, and maybe a little bit before that too, because I definitely see Wayne as far as young Wayne, middle Wayne, and then old Wayne. And again, I brought this up before. You can say that about any actor.
Sure.
But
No,
him,
but
it's
he's deserved it of
so
some
defined.
eras.
It's so defined.
Absolutely.
But just the way he looks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This definitely, this feels, this is very 70s Wayne.
Yeah.
And if you go through his stuff,
Yeah.
he there's a softness usually to the films, and maybe even more of a comedic lightheartedness.
Sure.
And it's not just because it's a kid's film, but I think part of that was, one, he was getting older, and two, I think he was trying to push back against the grittier anti-hero westerns coming out.
Absolutely.
Which he was not a fan with.
72 is prime spaghetti western.
Right. Late 60s, that starts to come out. More
Yep.
blood, more gore, and then just like more the bad guy, good guy type stuff.
Yep.
Meaning, anti-heroes. And Wayne was very much against that. That's why he did not like Clint Eastwood. So I don't know if there was a reaction to that, and that's why he does the Cowboys. That's why he does Big Jake and Cal Hill, U.S. Marshal.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
a very father figure and very...
Moral roles.
Yes, and not that he doesn't do a lot of more roles in the 50s and 60s. It's more so that it's just heightened. And there's an overall lightheartedness or something about the way they're shot even. This one is is great, though, where I'm not the biggest fan. I don't really like Big Jake. Cal Hill I kind of like. This hits.
Sure.
This still has like you said, it's sharp in areas.
Yeah. I think sharp in areas that is kind of perfect for its audience as well. Of kind of being like a father-son movie, maybe like a grandfather-son movie.
Big time.
Definitely a Boy Scout type of morals, something that you're walking away with some meaning for. Once again, on that note, the Cowboys is a family western, with the harsh realities of the genre are thrown to the side for this coming-of-age story. But it's defined by hard work. It's defined by hard circumstances, and I feel like has meaning in that way. Wayne plays Will Anderson, a moral rancher with old-school opinions on work ethic, even back in the West, that most of the cowpokes he hires, they don't seem to understand, and instead looking for quick riches with the gold rush. Walking by a schoolhouse, the idea strikes him, if you can't find a good helping hand, might as well resort to child labor. And thus the Cowboys. But no, the real reason is John Wayne's character lost 2 boys of his own, and after a fun, snappy tryout sequence, might see more potential in the Cowboys than he ever expected. While these boys might be chomping at the bit to go on an adventure, the cattle drive is run by old Iron Pants himself, and might be tougher than they ever imagined. I would say overall, I've seen this before.
Yeah, how many times, by the way?
Oh, just once with you.
Okay.
This was one of the ones. Actually, I think the only thing this year that I didn't see was Three Godfathers. So I'm glad that almost to kind of level set a little bit.
Yeah.
We came back to these that I knew I liked them for one, and also was just kind of making sure the scores still stand. Overall, I had a good time with this movie. I think once again, its Boy Scout style lessons are perfect for like a father-son, kind of even like a mentoring type of audience. Even if some of the edges could be rounded coming off of 1972. That's where I mentioned like there are sharp edges and then there's soft edges. Specifically, a few N-bombs dropped in the runtime I felt were a little bit unnecessary, even if they are coming out of a villainous mouth. It's coming out of the bad guy played by Bruce Dern. I feel like that, and I know I felt the same way about it. It just feels so in conflict to what is otherwise almost a perfect family movie, almost a movie that belonged in the 90s, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
with being made in 72. And I mean that as a big credit to this.
I love this as a kids movie. I think it's a great kids movie. But that is a thing where I would almost want a physical copy and then edit it or somehow do something digitally myself because N-word is just too much. And I think it fits the character.
Sure.
Even the kids,
he's a bad guy.
Even the kids say it in a questioning tone because they're set in the 1880s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they definitely play up like they're in the 1880s. The problem is it's 2024. But I would almost
what it's intended for, this kid audience. You know?
Right. And I just think if this movie had a little bit more, if it was a little bit more well known, like some other Waynes, I feel like there would have been some type of special release or something like that.
Sure.
But now it sucks because you would either have to do something on your own, or literally be watching with your kids with the remote and press the mute button at those times. Seriously, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's such a great kids movie. It's crazy.
Absolutely. I think the moral angle, usually something I get annoyed at, I think it's the best part about this because I feel like the experience of it, regardless of your age, is by the end we're looking up to Wayne. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're looking up to old Iron Pants and saying, "Wow, let's get at it." We're losing daylight.
Right, and this could be cheesy as hell. This has a lot of potential to be bad.
Yeah,
and I think it rides the line of just like, wow, he managed to do it.
Yeah,
Mark Rydell, and just crafting something that could be a little bit gritty here or there, and that you buy the children. Yeah, because it really could. I mean, it's good. Oh boy!
It really could have been on the knife's edge for the children alone, and no less 11 kids. This is a lot of opportunities for it to not work. I'm happy to say, I mean, all 11 kids were great. I mean, maybe they don't add the biggest value to the story, but they were scared when they needed to be.
Yeah, exactly right. They were useful.
That really what it boils down to. For
necessary characters.
Yeah.
So. While watching, did you finish up the summary of basically the?
Yeah. I think
before I keep going,
my only summary or my only other notes with this is that I really was impressed with how the production felt from this. Like I said, from the small music to the coming of age structure, it honestly felt like it could have been a 90s movie, and I mean that in a good way. Like,
Yes.
this feels like what I've talked about previously with what we get in the 90s, that there are stepping stones. There are moments in film that hit on the tones that get done to death in the 90s, and this is one of those templates. I feel like this is something to look at in tracking those movements. I think largely that has to do with one particular person tied to this movie. The music is done by John motherfucking Williams.
Yeah. John Williams himself.
Yeah. Which pre-Jaws, pre-Star Wars,
Yeah.
and he's still got the lines. He's got the trumpet lines. It's
He's
just
still
like,
in his. He's in his 40s, I think, when this came out. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
he's not
like
like
he's
he's
working,
not in his
yeah.
23. It's not like he's 23.
Yeah.
But the main score is good. It's fine. It's like classical Western.
Yeah.
I will say, John Williams, what he does within the film and the little beats. At one point, there's a very loud horn, and he's so loud, and I'm going,
There he is.
There he is. I'm going. It's just like if you were in the room, I was just out loud. I was like, classic John, making it about himself. You can barely hear the characters talking right now.
So true, so true. I love that you have a vendetta with John
Not
Williams
a
of all
vendetta.
people.
Not a vendetta.
A beloved feud.
But I have some issues with John.
Listen, for someone that's very picky about music and film like me, I love it.
Okay.
You have full support.
But John Williams does do the score in this.
Yeah, yeah.
On top of this, I don't know if you saw the cinematographer, what is
No,
his
I didn't.
name? Robert Sturdice or Sturdice, whatever.
Okay.
Big time cinematographer.
Really?
He did Ben-Hur. He did The Sting. He did The Graduate.
Oh,
so he's coming with prowess. I mean,
and he's coming with some momentum onto 72. Wow, interesting. Yeah, I mean, as far as that note, I don't have too much like written down, but I did. Even in comparison to some of the cattle drive sequences we covered just in this year for John Wayne movies, I feel like it's a pretty good, like, as far as like putting kids on horses and like the scenes look good.
the scenes,
you know,
some of the camera work, some of the tracking shots.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some great panning shots and tracking shots, like I said.
Yeah.
Even small stuff when right before they start the cattle drive, and it follows John Wayne all the way along the herd.
Yes.
It's just like this is. He was 65 when they shot the film. I was like, man, he rides a horse great still.
Yeah.
It's just good to see him actually riding. But then they do the shot, which you love in Red River, where they give an individual close up of each kid.
We'll call it the
before starts.
yeehaw sequence. But yeah, I love that.
Yeah, coming away from this, by the way, I think make cattle drive movies great again.
Sure.
We need more because
Maybe that's the move for Horizon Part 2.
just stick to cattle drive.
Yeah, just like funnel it down. Everyone's on the cattle drive.
But yeah, there was a quality to this. I think Mark Rydell's directing style was great because there are just great actual shots that doesn't make it atypical, stereotypical Western film.
Right.
You know?
Not only is it, I feel like, a template in the style, it's a template because it's a good family movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where I think, like, when I call it like it belongs in the 90s, that even in my own type of dialogue around movies could probably be taken as an insult. I really don't mean it. Like, it's good in a way. It's a template.
Yeah,
in a way.
I completely agree. I think there was a short-lived show that got spun out of this.
Really?
Called The Cowboys.
Interesting.
Right after the film came out. I did want to make a point. You said something. Oh, the kids riding on horseback? So half of the kids actually came from the junior rodeo circuit.
Yes.
And then half the kids were actors.
Yep.
And they said that they did 90% of the horseback riding in the film was actually the kids.
Wow.
Only 10% was actually their doubles, their stunt doubles or whatever. They sell it. They do really well. Even when they're going through the woods and like there's a chase scene and stuff.
Sure.
That's the actual kids.
Wow.
Which is great. So when they were filming, they were either filming. When they weren't filming, then they were in school. But if they weren't in school or not filming, then they were told to do roping.
Wow.
Practice roping, which is fantastic.
You got to do it. Yeah.
It was 3.5 months, like 14 weeks of filming that they did out on this massive ranch. And everybody talked about how great John Wayne was on set. The kids loved it. John Wayne, he ate with everybody. He was very kind to the kids. He had multiple moments.
Great.
By the end of the film, the kids absolutely loved him. And
I think you feel that. You feel that in the performances.
And he said how much he loved the kids. He said while working on it, he said it was one of the best experiences he've ever had in his life, was working on this film.
That's great. And so late in the career, that's wonderful. I think that's great.
So a couple notes with John Wayne and some other people.
Sure. Well, go ahead.
How much research did you do into this?
I did a lot of research with the kids that I wanted to maybe just springboard off of that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We set up the film, right? There's a cattle drive. There's no workers. Right. So
The gold rush.
I'm all excited and looking at my notes.
Well, I mean, on the note of the kids, I think if last week wasn't enough of a demonstration how kid actors could really ruin everything, despite like really liking a film, I was a bit nervous going into this with a whopping 11 kids playing the Cowboys Wayne takes under his wing. You know, there isn't a huge amount of insight we get into the kids simply because, 11 characters is a lot to juggle in any type of story. But I was far from annoyed from their acting. And if anything, these kids actors sell fear in a realistic way. That's where I think there were good edges to this by mixing family-friendly and Western. The trail is a scary life or death journey. And these kids felt scared shitless a lot of the times. There's a scene where Bruce Dern holds a knife to one of the kids' throats, and it's a little scary.
The guy said while filming that scene, he was like, Bruce Dern was nice and everything like that, and we set up that we went through it before action and stuff. He goes, his knife was really. He goes, I was freaked out. He goes, when he takes me to the river and dunks me in.
Yeah, he's like whipping him around.
He goes, I actually lost my glasses. You can see it, but I just happened to catch him, so they didn't go in the water. He goes, I was scared.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, I mean, as far as that goes, I feel like the core of my problem with kid acting is it breaks immersion. It takes me out.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that at all here. And if anything, that's where it was like a surprisingly good quality to it. Something that was also surprising was, like you said, Tom, finding out what these kids do after their career and how little actually continue an acting career after this.
I know.
This is an enjoyable aspect to movies like this, The Goonies, Stand By Me, kind of tracking where they are now. You get a few acting still today. The kids that play Cimarron and Slim Honeycutt's also in the Hall of Fame of, we're building a Hall of Fame of good Western names. Slim Honeycutt?
Slim Honeycutt's pretty good.
Really good.
Well, not to mention the actor that plays John Wayne's older friend. Who comes up with the idea of why don't you ask the school kids? Yeah. I mean, that's Slim Pickens.
Yeah, that is.
Which I think is a classic name, classic actor, Slim Pickens.
It is great. I think the most interesting aspect was, while some of them are sprinkled into movies to come, over half of these kids either go into stuntman work in Hollywood, or like you said, real rodeo competitions. The one kid was actually complaining he couldn't get off of other movie sets that he was acting in because he wanted to compete in rodeo competitions and then quit acting because that's what he wanted to do. I was like, wow, that's interesting and also awesome, for this Western, pulling from these kids.
I think the fact that they went to the junior rodeo circuit and that's how they got half the kids is great because then you have to teach them the chops of acting. Or then you had the other half of the kids, you needed to teach them the chops of being a cow.
Sure.
I love how I've been using cowpoke. You've been using cowpoke? Love it. We got to bring cowpoke back. Because it's in some of these Westerns we've been watching.
Yeah. Cowpoke.
But that half and half I like, and they all blend into what they need. The roles pretty well.
Absolutely. And maybe even the approach there in production is that if it's half and half, they kind of lean on each other. They cross-pollinate as far as their skills,
Right.
The rodeo kids help on the horse, and I don't know how much the acting kids help with acting. But again, I think the realism that this achieves is fear. Not to bring in Shyamalan for some extra flack, but when we covered Knock at the Cabin, it's like the kid isn't scared. How is this kid not scared? These kids were scared, and I feel like it's a scary scenario.
It's on their face. When there's emotion, there needs to be emotion.
That's really kind of where it boils down to. If there's one thing that needs to be checked off, it's just that. It's the fear of it.
Yeah,
so.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah, but that's the end notes with the kids.
With the kids,
I
don't have much more. I mean, like I said, I listened to hours of stories from them and on set.
Loaded.
And, personal stuff with John Wayne and everything, which is really great, touching. It seemed like a great set to be on. And the fact that everyone was filming around this for 14 weeks or whatever, set on one ranch, and then they bought something like 1,200 actual cattle. They had like 300 horses that they bought. Everything's real. When you see the kids working the cattle and the horses in the movie, they are actually doing it. Wow. They had long days of riding and actually filming with the real animals.
Absolutely,
they were the one curtailing them and funneling them, and I think that's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go into just how the film got to be a little bit.
Oh, sure.
So you didn't do big research on it?
No, I knew it was based on a book, but that's about it.
Okay, so Mark Rydell,
Yeah.
like we said, he was an actor. He came out of the Actors Guild a little bit.
Okay.
And he was well known in there and tried some acting.
Interesting.
But then he did some directing, and he was set to direct the first Exorcist.
What?
Yeah, and then Warner Bros. Dismissed him for whatever reason.
Wow.
And then that's why he picked this up.
Wow. Right. The years work out there.
Which-
That's so odd.
It's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, he really wanted to do this book. Wasn't a Western guy. He was a New York City guy.
Yeah.
Like, not his deal at all. So when he was writing it and everything and coming up with it, he had an actor in mind. And basically, he made John Wayne's character for a specific actor.
Oh.
And I'll say it in a second. John Wayne found out about it. John Wayne really wanted to do it.
Okay.
And then when the studio found out John Wayne was in it, the studio really wanted John Wayne to do it. So Mark Rydell, what did he went to? He said he went to Nantucket to speak to John Wayne in person.
Okay.
And he was like, Duke, how are we going to make a movie together? He goes, you are a far right wing. You were a right wing icon. And he goes, I'm socialist. I said, I'm borderline communist, progressive. How the hell are we going to work together?
Yeah.
And John Wayne said, well, just tell me how to act. And Mark Rydell said, well, I can do that.
Yeah.
And Mark Rydell said it was an absolute blast with John Wayne. He said he was great to direct. That's what a lot of directors say. John Wayne's very good to direct. If you tell him what to do, he'll do it.
Sure.
He doesn't try to, hey, I'm the Duke. I've done the 200 films.
The ego doesn't get in the way.
No, apparently not. He's very, he listens to his directors. Mark Rydell said he was great with the kids, with the whole staff. They all just really fell in love together. And then same thing with Roscoe Lee Brown.
Yes,
which,
great.
Speaking of names, his name, Jebediah Nightlinger,
as
a character name. Roscoe Lee Brown, who also was a New York big stage guy.
Yes.
He was big into plays and acting on stage. All of his friends told him not to take the part and to do the movie because of John Wayne. And then he decided to do the film anyway. And sure enough, and I think he made a comment to John Wayne, and John Wayne was just like, we'll just talk about acting.
Yeah.
And then I learned, doing all this research and listening to these podcasts, they would always play chess in the morning together before filming.
Oh, wow.
Roscoe Lee Brown and John Wayne. He said in between cuts and in between filming, throughout the day, they would share poetry back and forth because they both loved poetry.
Wow.
Which I just think was awesome.
Yeah.
Everyone was a huge family, and I think that was great that's how all that ended up.
Sure.
And it's just different than probably how it would be today, and how separate things are in politics
or even just the production cycle of just not having moments of break like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Another cool thing with Roscoe Lee Brown, by the way, folks, if you watch this movie, Roscoe Lee Brown, Jebediah Nightlinger,
a standout.
His vocal work, his inflections is so great.
Yeah.
You can tell he comes off the play.
I would say the trinity is John Wayne, a good performance from him, Roscoe Lee Brown, and Bruce Dern as a good villain. I feel like as far as the three adults in the main plot, they all hold their weight. They all even if the kids were bad, I feel like it would have been decent just because of those three.
There would have been some glue there.
Yeah.
Another cool production note. So Slim Honeycutt, one of the older kids that plays guitar, played guitar in real life, and it would be lunch or something.
Yep.
And he would just be playing guitar a little bit, and Roscoe Lee Brown would recite Shakespeare to everybody. And it just sounds like a great set.
It really does. I feel like there's something that translates to the kids.
You see it on screen.
Yeah, you see it on screen. There's something there that a kid wouldn't be able to hide not having a good time like that. You know what I mean? So.
And then one thing with Bruce Dern, because everybody said he was professional and stuff, but John Wayne said, you have full permission that while we're on set to treat me and the director Mark Rydell like a piece of shit, because he wanted to foster this you're supposed to hate me. You're supposed to be
he's
a bad
despicable
guy.
for sure.
And apparently, he was kind of like that. He was cold on set a little bit, but Bruce Dern is a great bad guy.
yeah, absolutely.
So, who do you think?
I'm glad you didn't forget this. You moved on.
No.
Okay, all right.
So again, John Wayne's character was really written and was supposed to be someone else.
72, possibly 71. I don't know, Jack Nicholson. I'm trying to think. Even the clues of maybe political leanings. What he started with. Paul Newman. All right, I give up.
Okay. George C. Scott.
Oh my God!
Different movie, phenomenal.
Oh,
movie
it would have been phenomenal. He would have been chewing these kids apart.
I don't want to say I'm sad that John Wayne got the part.
in
Okay.
Oh Holy John Wayne July.
Right, this movie is phenomenal with John Wayne. John Wayne does great at this character, but George C. Scott would have crushed this film. Would have absolutely crushed this movie if George C. Scott was in it. By the way, so at some point they kind of come across like a wagon brothel. The kids.
Yep.
And the main,
which again is such a great like kind of Boy Scout type of moral lesson. Comes off like really genuine.
Yes.
Great scene.
So the main woman, the elder statesman of I don't know the women.
The elder statesman. You like it.
That was Colleen Dewhurst, who is the wife of George C. Scott.
Really? Wow.
So that would have been kind of a funny moment there.
Wow. Very interesting. Wow. That's some great trivia. I like that a lot. And talk about tying it all together with our favorite actor from now into infinity, George C. Scott.
The only other thing that I have is since Bruce Dern was such an ass in the film, such a bad guy.
Yeah.
John Wayne warned him, said that, people are going to hate you now the way you act towards me. He was okay with it. He got death threats after.
Oh, wow.
He said while filming...
the fan reception.
Yes.
Wow.
He said while filming The Hateful Eight, like just, in 2014 or 2015 or whatever, he said he still gets hate mail for being such an ass to John Wayne.
Wow.
Who's his daughter again? Purple hair, Star Wars?
Laura Dern.
Laura Dern, yes.
Wow, I did not connect that she's the daughter of Bruce Dern. Wow. Okay.
She said that this movie came out and she was a little girl.
Yeah.
And some parents canceled play dates after this film came out because they didn't want to be associated with like Bruce Dern's daughter.
Unreal.
Because of this film.
Wow.
That's how much of an asshole he is.
He's an asshole in this. Despicable is the word, no redeeming quality.
I know. Now, he says what his name is, his character's name in the movie.
But
in the book and in the credits, it's just long hair. That's his character's name.
I like that.
I think that's pretty much what I got with the fun facts.
You got the trivia down. I think that's great. And also, I think the substance there legitimately is that this translates to the production. These behind the scenes things, there's a magic here a little bit with the film.
Real quick, while watching this film, do you see yourself in the kid's position or in John Wayne's position? Where do you see yourself in this film?
As someone that enjoys teaching, I definitely related to John Wayne. Just herding the cats, wrangling the kids as well with the cattle. I do feel like the experience of the film, though, is by the end, the heartstrings being pulled are us looking up to John Wayne, looking up to the lessons, and that's why I even opened with his old persona starting in True Grit. I feel like this very similar heartstrings pulled in both of those stories.
Absolutely,
That this old man, stubborn, like he describes his cattle, ornery. He still has something to give. You know? So, on that note, I'll end with my favorite John Wayne one-liner from this, and which I kind of love coming across these. Bruce Dern goes, "Do I look like I'd beat a kid?" And Wayne goes, "You look like the vermin-ridden son of a bitch you are." It's just like, hell yeah, that's great. But folks, while it might be easy for me to, I don't know, maybe not me, but even just a non-Western fan, a normal movie watcher, to kind of roll your eyes at the usual, quote-unquote, John Wayne routine, I really think the movie used it to the fullest to capture a feeling. And again, it's that feeling of like, I don't know, moral lessons, Boy Scout, father-son, all these aspects. By the end of the film, you sit there with the same feeling as the kids, something that comes from an impactful mentor or an older person in your life that has made a difference. And even if you don't necessarily connect with the story on that level, I think these 11 kid actors sold that aspect in their performance, which lets it stand above many family-friendly stories that lack that same follow-through, that are shallow when it comes to that final ending piece that made this matter so much. With that said, we're going to go ahead and give the Cowboys a 71.
71%. Okay. Yeah. Excellent, Vin.
I thought it was really good.
It's a step up from the Three Godfathers. So in the right direction.
In the right direction. It broke the curse, the descending John Wayne curse.
71 really is a good score. I'm glad you like this because I knew you watching it again. I was almost concerned because it's on a knife's edge. Is this going to be kiddish and schlock?
Sure.
Or does this have something to it?
Yeah.
And I watched this, I think, 3 times in the past few weeks because I thought we were going to cover last week, but so I was like, screw it, I'll watch it again.
Yeah.
And really enjoyed it. I thought going into it, and once again, with all these other 3 films that we had watched prior, I found it to be stronger than what I remember. And, I try to stay off my phone. The more you're into the film, the more you're into
for
it.
sure,
You know what I
for
mean?
sure.
And by the end, it's good to see, John Wayne does do some acting in this. I like some of his acting in it, even though he's not maybe as expressionist as he was back in the 40s.
Sure.
In these past few films that we've done. He still has something here. He is still not just atypical John
Cowboy
Wayne's a bad
man.
actor that people kind of maybe view him as.
Absolutely.
So with all this research I did and these, the podcasts I was listening to, I was getting more and more excited about it.
Sure.
I do have to tamp that down a little bit. This definitely gets two shoes. And, when this gets up on this site, I at least for podcast listeners, definitely a shine. This is two shoes polished big time. It's close to a lace, but just not quite.
Absolutely.
Really enjoyable. Really like this film.
Yeah, I think that's great too because you're so right. It could just be you could look at this and say, "Oh, this is the John Wayne shtick." He's just like old Duke, old Iron Pants, as he's as the nickname in the film. But there's something more to it, and something that honestly I think next year I would love to start with True Grit, maybe work backwards from old persona to young, just to kind of put it to test because I don't think True Grit had that aspect. He was just kind of ornery. He was kind of just like an old timer. You know?
The problem with True Grit is True Grit is not even in my top 5.
Sure. You've always said that the Oscar he gets for it was kind of like a pity Oscar, which I believe that is usually the consensus with it.
Yeah, because he had it was announced that he had cancer.
Yeah.
So it was just like we can't have John Wayne die and not get an Oscar.
Sure, right.
He's playing a character, and the problem is it comes across as not the most genuine. It's you can see John Wayne acting in a bad way. Where with this, with what we've been finding, especially in the 40s, it's like, oh, dude can act actually.
Yeah.
Can actually just act.
Like John Ford said, son of a bitch can act.
And that's the thing with True Grit. Enjoy the movie, of course.
Yeah.
But with how much praise that gets, not my top 5.
Sure, absolutely.
Cowboys is great though. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. 71%. Excellent, Vin. Let's take a big old tonal shift. We're still
to a lot of bloody and gore and violence.
Yes. So let's go to this Belgian couple. These directors, Helena Kate and Bruno Fernazzi. They're like I said, Belgian couple doing a very small budget, small Western. In 2017, it's not an old film.
Yeah.
The poster has style and age to it, which looks
Love
cool.
this poster.
I was just like, is this the poster to Thunderball? I don't understand.
Yeah. Oh, good call. It does feel
I
like
had
a
to
little
stare
Bondish.
at it for a second.
Yeah.
But original title, Les Bronzer Les Cadavers.
Cadavers.
Boy, that was a mess. I'm much better with my Japanese pronunciation.
You're right.
I wasn't ready for it.
Your Japanese is maybe getting there.
Okay. All right, enough of me talking here. Let the Corpses Tan 2017, the small-time film. Break it down for us, Vin.
So this is a newer Western, both modern in its present-day European setting and in its release coming out in 2017. It's definitely more of an indie production. Coming out of Belgium with a French spoken as the spoken language here. And originally I thought it landed on my list through, some time ago through a recommendation, but my movie list has gotten so long, I need to start tracking where they come from. So
yeah, I feel like these are like these magical movie lists I always hear about. Yeah, I feel like there's so many. They're incredibly long.
It's on the Google Keep.
It's like they're in stone tablets hidden in your closet.
Yes. Some of them are old. Some of them I need to revise. My interest in this spawns from two things. Possibly finding a contender in the neo-Western subgenre where films like No Country for Old Men or Hell or High Water exist. More so Westerns in theming, but not in like a gunslinger setting.
Yeah.
And straight up, a badass title that had me hooked the first time I heard it. Let the Corpses Tan. I mean, thankfully that title walks the walk because, folks, I'm ecstatic to say that I found a serious gem here.
Really?
This movie was awesome. And I think over the course of writing this review, I was grasping so much at comparisons of what this made it feel like. And I really walk away with just like, this movie was straight up good on its own. There's definitely a lot of inspiration here at play. This movie really was truly excellent. Let the Corpses Tan is a European heist thriller that lets its setting, atmosphere, and brutality, most of all, dictate its neo-Western styling. Many moments of the film will dip into surrealism. Many moments will be hypersexual in a way that a European filmmaker can only pull off. But at the heart is a kick-ass heist movie that twists into a Tarantino-style thriller and doesn't waste an ounce of its snappy runtime. It's like an hour 31, is that right?
Yeah, hour 32, yeah.
I mean, it is there is not an ounce of fat on this thing. Our setting, what I believe, I could be wrong, is like a sexy art retreat in Corsica, which is an island off of France. Which is important to note to understand the headspace of our characters involved, especially how they react to stress. Usually that reaction is to just get drunk, which, again, feels very European. Specifically, this getaway is run by a performance artist named Lucy, who is more than a bit insane. We'll start there. And will give us flashbacks to the trippy and hypersexual pieces she has created over the years, all themed around gold. Gold is a big theme at work here, or at least kind of a visual motif. Her guests include a washed-up writer, unexpected family connections, and most importantly, visiting criminals that plan to use their alibi connected to this vacation to knock over a vault truck filled with gold bars. This heist spirals out of control quickly, with guns and violence abound for the runtime, all cranked to max intensity, taking place under 24 hours in this villa turned into the OK Corral. Folks, the very best thing about this movie is it is a tight-ass story. Shit goes down so fast. I could get where it could be a little bit disorienting, especially when some surreal vibes come into play. But we do not stop chugging for an hour and 30 minutes, and we do not stop cranking the attention and the stakes of this little, like, Mexican standoff, ultimately.
Yeah.
More and more over that hour and 30. Even in the moments that things get a little bit trippy and artistic, they're constantly bookended by just great shootout scenes that cleanses your palate with action. You know, this story also plays a great quality from films like Reservoir Dogs, for instance, where allegiances between characters will shift during action. And that's where, like, it twists this Mexican standoff-style gunfight into more of a chaotic thriller than I expected. I know thriller may sound like some extra genre tacked onto this, but there are moments that are a little scary because you really don't know where allegiances lie, all pressed under everyone aiming a gun out the window.
So I'll bring up the film that I brought up earlier in the episode. Is this Hateful Eight vibes?
Yes.
Because you're basically trapped in one location,
100%.
and characters are unfolding as you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where in writing this review, I struggled. I said Reservoir Dogs, Hateful Eight. I said Leon the Professional a little bit.
Wow. Okay.
I said Desperado, sticking with Tarantino. All of these right on the money, but this movie was so good on its own by that merit.
Because obviously I was putting it on the site, so reading about it and reading a little bit of synopsis and plot. And I guess my only concern looking at this, and the reason why I was going to actually text you and say, hey, is this one worth it? Should I give it a watch? And I didn't, because I was like, you know what, if it was good, he probably would have just told me to watch it.
I should have.
I think the only thing looking at it was because of the simplicity of the plot and all that. I just thought, does it feel like a low-budget Western? Some new Westerns that come out, almost a small revival of the spaghetti Western. They're not good.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because there's not enough of a professionalism that's worth your time to sit down and watch through it.
Yeah. That's where I think the neo-Western styling of it does some legwork.
Okay.
I feel like its modern setting definitely separates it a little bit. I feel like it's these surreal vibes. They are not afraid to play with colors and different lighting, experimental scenes. I don't want to give any spoilers, but of the many people that die in this type of Reservoir Dogs setup, it's how it's done always dips a tiny bit into a dreamlike quality and then shows us the brutality of what's going on. So we almost kind of like get thrown off the scent and then shocked by like what the real violence is. And I felt it was just like, man, this is so cool on its own.
It was carrying you around well. Does it feel like Western first? If you had to pick the genre first, even IMDb, even IMDb just says thriller under it.
Yeah. I think that's a fair argument to make, that it's certainly inspired by a lot of Westerns, but is it a Western itself? Tough to say. I think calling it a neo-Western is clear enough, though, because, again, there are elements that are such direct nods to other Westerns, and I can definitely get into that. All of that is tied to visual storytelling. I feel like this is a very slick movie. I'll be honest and say there are some factors that might lose some people, specifically the sexual and surreal tones, possibly even the foreign subtitles, and a little bit of maybe confusion and losing track of when those alliances blur. The subtitles are, a little bit of a hurdle, realistically, to keep track of everything. But so much of this was fine-tuned to tell the story it was trying to tell. There is a clock element that creates a wonderful pacing where this is able to play with different characters' experiences. Like I said, this takes place all under 24 hours. Again, that it's already giving me a skeleton to what I can expect from it.
We just talked about that. We just
Trap.
talked about that with Twisters.
And
Trap.
yeah, absolutely. Trap. Yeah, no, actually, probably more
Twister,
appropriate for Twister.
not Twisters. Yeah.
Where I like time constraints in a plot.
You have nothing to do but keep going,
exactly.
to be moving. Yeah.
Exactly, and we're conscious of that. We know, we're getting towards the end. It kind of helps with pacing. But, with all this taking place under 24 hours, many moments will loop back to the same exact moment to show how this standoff develops from a different character. An early example of this is when the shots are first fired, and that is presented with a loop around the same few seconds, like almost 3 times over, and we snap to many perspectives with things wildly sprawling out of control, and it's where this clock format really shines. I loved this, and that I didn't really have a comparison of what film has done this prior. I'm not saying that there isn't a predecessor to that, but
mixing all of these things together,
it was
seems
great.
really unique.
Absolutely.
Now, like you said, it's easy to get lost in this one because of subtitles and then moving around.
Yes, very, very. And again, it's how characters work.
Right. A second watch would probably be beneficial.
Absolutely. And well, I did give it a second watch, but
I didn't know, by the way. I was not trying to set you up.
You got me. I did give it a second watch. Ultimately, I did kind of... I want to level out my praise a little bit because I feel like especially the sexual vibes of this, it gets into some weird European stuff, but it's all themed around gold, which I like. It's a spaghetti Western. The shootouts are also where, surprisingly, this shows some of its Western influences, and where I would say I would definitely fall on the sword for calling this a neo-Western, which I think is which is great, regardless if you pick him up or not. This is not something that you really need to know, all the film nerd connections. This is really good on its own. On the surface, the gold heist focus of the story might seem like its most direct nod, a literal ecstasy of gold that so many spaghetti westerns focus on. This also comes with a very specific nod to Clint Eastwood's A Few Dollars More, where they have a wind-up music box playing over the soundtrack.
Wow.
And that's used as an audio cue for these time jumps. But the shootouts, man, there is so much communicated that it felt like the very best parts of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and Wild Bunch, for that matter.
Wow, okay.
Like, it really felt like I just something about it. Like, the shootouts aren't necessarily about hitting people with bullets. It's about what are the stakes if I do get hit, and how we communicate that and how we make that feel real and tense. This was definitely a chaotic film, especially when, again, the mixes of surreal come into play. But the action was staged in such a creative way. All around it, it gives the audience information. Every action scene was more than just the action. It was about what information can we give to the audience about how these criminals are maybe escaping this, standoff. Sometimes giving us the viewpoint of every character's reaction to something, and other times withholding info for the twist of what a character will do. And I just I loved it. I loved it. It was so good. This has some fantastic cinematography all over the film. I actually think I love that the most of all as far as the camera work. Just really, really awesome close-ups, fun, snappy editing to keep the pacing move as quick as possible. In ways, this felt very Wes Anderson as far as the cuts. There's a moment where the main boss is handing out the guns that they're going to use in the heist, and the way it cuts to just their hand picking up the gun, I mean, it's total Wes Anderson, and in a good way too. This gets an extended credit sequence in the beginning and sells you just how cool this movie is and how cool criminals are in this movie. And without a doubt, the whole production crew will be something I keep an eye out for, but especially cinematographer Manuel Ducos, because this was just from the get-go, I said, wow. And I kept on saying wow as far as what visually was done in this film.
So do you know any up-and-coming stuff with him? Do you know?
No, they're all French, and this is such a not low, but indie production.
Yeah.
That I don't know. They don't have much, even with this coming out in 2017. I mean, that's a good 7 years now.
He does a lot of work.
Yeah.
Nothing major.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything would be considered B, even though they might be good films, but
sure.
you know.
Or just plainly in the foreign market.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
He hasn't made it over the pond. Like I said already in the description of the film, I think it would be safe to call this very Tarantino-ish, especially in feeling like a cross between Hateful Eight and something like Desperado. This also slightly reminded me, like I said, of Leon the Professional in the way we are introduced to the criminal world. We're 100% shown villainy, not told villainy. And that counts over to some pretty badass full leather cops. Like the intro is just it's just their head, no headshots. It's like chest down, and they're just smoking cigarettes in a cafe. It's just like, oh, this is awesome. The struggle or the challenge I had in writing about this experience is it left me grasping for comparison when I really do think the movie was just great on its own. This movie captured almost everything I want in a film. A sexy, psychedelic crime thriller western. That's a lot of buzzwords, but a movie that has villains who are cold as ice, with moments of heroism from unexpected twists, and most of all, great action to back it all up. If you want to know the type of movie I personally would want to watch this movie, because I'm jealous of nearly every moment they pulled off here. We're going to go ahead and give Let the Corpses Tan 2017 an 82.
An 82%, a great score.
Really great.
Wow, surprised. I'm
really
surprised.
Great. Honestly, I've said it a couple times on the podcast. I feel like the more I watch films, the more I say, I don't know if Tarantino's got it anymore, because I love his movies, but there are people doing the same, and this was definitely one of those moments where I was like, wow, this is a movie that has energy to it.
I'm more than shocked at this. I'm sure you were surprised.
I
know you were excited to see it.
Right, but I really was it was off the title alone.
Right. 82% is a huge score. Let the Corpses Tan. Wow, from 2017. By the way, how do we watch it if we want to?
On Amazon.
Okay.
On streaming, but you're probably going to have to buy it.
Or rent it.
Yeah, rent it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And no dubbing, like subtitles.
Yeah, subtitles.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. And like I said, it was something that I'll show my hand, and I definitely tried to watch it again. I did watch it again.
Yeah.
Because I felt like the feeling inside was like must watch. I feel like this was a rare moment where I went for the second watch and I actually kind of toned it back a little bit.
I think that's good. That's healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, 82% is still a huge score. So
Yeah.
people don't sleep on it. If you're into this kind of genre, I'm going to watch it. I mean, this is going to go on one of my lists of watch before the end of the year for the
Right.
Tom Dailies.
Right.
Excellent, Vin. Excellent. Really, really cool. Okay, folks, let's just go ahead and go into our producer segment, because we have a producer for today, Vincent Daly. We have Jon Frampton coming in once again. So he's produced a couple times now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he came in and bought you a movie ticket.
Oh, wonderful.
Along with the surcharge or whatever it is, the transfer fee.
That's
We
now
always
become
appreciate it.
the gentleman's agreement.
So he spent $12.60 our way. And John writes in his producer note, "Gentlemen, loving the show. I always look forward to your latest episode to a point where I listen almost immediately and left waiting for the following week. I wish I could let them build up like a weekly TV show and binge them all at once, but I just can't help myself. Great stuff. Love your director studies and found myself agreeing with last week's M. Night scores. I think an interesting and hilarious director study episode would be Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Their hilarity has rocked the cinematic world for decades, and they'd also make the perfect 5 slot.
Oh, okay.
So these films would be Cannonball, the musical.
Interesting.
Orgasmo.
Okay, heard of it.
Basketball?
Yep, basketball.
Okay. Team America, World Police, which I haven't seen, but like everyone talks about.
Of course.
And then South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
Is that just the only South Park movie?
I don't know, but that's the one that Max Farnsworth, the previous producer, said we should watch, put in our another animation slot.
Wow.
A truly entertaining week. Keep doing what you're doing. And then he goes, Keystone represent.
Keystone represent.
Hell yeah.
That's great. And I think that's a perfect example of where I like how the 5 slot, it's something for creativity. You know what I mean? It's a limitation, but it's something that, it creates something, an opportunity to, think about 5 movies together. What would be a good 5 slot? So, I think a very interesting list. I think I'm going to mark that down because that's easy work, most of all, just as far as brainstorming.
There you go, John. You got it on one of his lists. I like it. I mean, I don't know any of these. Oh, actually, Team America World Police is just something I need to watch.
Sure.
Because I've never seen it before.
Yeah. And the rare, a puppet movie, you know what I mean? There's not many
it's
puppet
brought up
movies.
A lot, too.
Yeah.
It's just like pop culture. It has existence. It has staying power.
I also hear great things about basketball. I feel like some people brought that up for the baseball episode last year. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I think that's great. And, while comedies may not be my huge cup of tea, that's a good 5 slot.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
So,
You're trying to win me over.
John, great note. And as always, thank you for producing and being a producer of the Daily Ratings. You are an executive producer of episode 147. Folks, anyone out there who's new to listening to the podcast, this is our producer segment where we thank our producers, obviously. But the idea is that Vin and I are going off the value for value model. That's how the Daily Ratings is run. Basically, what that is we're not advertising based. We won't shove advertising down your throat in the podcast, on the website. We're also not paid to access. It's not paywalls on the site. It's not subscription based. It's also not Patreon, where we force you to pay a certain amount of money to get a certain amount of access, and it goes up from there. The idea is, are you finding the Daily Ratings valuable? Listening to the podcast, using the website. We ask you, can you give us value back in our pocket? So you go to thedailyratings.com, you go to the donations tab, and through your monetary support, you show your value, and you also become an actual legitimate producer of the Daily Ratings. The reason why we don't want to do Patreon with the tier structure, payment structure, is everyone's got their own finances. Everyone's month is different from the next. If $5 is a lot of money to you, if you send that our way, it means the world to us.
Sure.
If $50 or $500 is a small amount of money to you, and you send that our way, that is a big deal for us. We appreciate it. Everyone's got their own stuff going on, so any amount of value that you feel like sending our way, if you're enjoying everything, we certainly appreciate it. When you donate, just like Jon Frampton did this episode, like I said, one, you become a producer, but we also want to recognize that in another way. So you can send a producer note our way, and it could be questions, comments, critiques. It could be suggestions as well. We're getting a lot of suggestions lately.
Yeah, I love that.
Just like John did this week. And the idea is it's a through line to you. It opens communication. If you're going to take the time to donate, to send us money, we not only want to say thank you, we want to acknowledge it and also, hear what you have to say. You're an actual producer of the Daily Ratings. It's cool. I think that so far the producers that do donate enjoy writing in as well. I think it's a small family that we got going on here.
Absolutely.
And we're growing slowly, and more, I think the value for value model is kind of picking up a lot. Even in the earlier in the year, had a dry spell. Yeah. And we could tell that the numbers were good, but now we have this wave of producers. And it's great.
Absolutely. I was even reflecting on it driving into work this morning. I was just like, I like that we're doing something different. Yes, that's scary in a way, because I was thinking about like Patreon specifically. And it's just like, I like that we're trying at least something new and different, and that hopefully connects in some way.
And it's not a moneymaker. I mean, Vin and I put that we have. I mean, at this point, we have thousands of hours into this project, into what is the Daily Ratings, and it's not. We're not trying to get rich quick, We're not just trying
Clearly not.
Right, get as many advertisers as possible, you know? A lot of people say that makes you the product. The idea is all we want are numbers to sell our download numbers to advertising companies.
So true.
You know what I mean? And then we just use you guys to put products into your face for money for us. We're not making really much money doing here.
It's about film. It's about
It's about moving, having a blast.
Discovering new movies.
And eventually, I mean, we want to keep doing this for a while.
Yep.
Hopefully we have a big audience. And at some point, hey, one day maybe things will get in our pocket and actually stay there. But for right now, we're still loving it. And just the engagement alone, $12 here or there is huge.
I like the mentality of covering the movie ticket as well. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing. When you go online, again, it's at dailyratings.com, go to the donations tab. There's set donations, so it's buy Vin a movie ticket, be a part of the Gump Club, a Godfather donation. But there's a big value for value button there, and that's when you click that, and it's any amount, big or small, that you want send in. You can send it directly through PayPal. You can just do it through the normal site. We have Venmo. Our Venmo link is on there. If you're into podcasting 2.0 and if you're doing Satoshis, we accept Satoshis. Really, any way to make it easy on you, you can donate in. So we appreciate it so much. John, executive producer of 147. Folks, if you want to be executive producer of 148, just head to thedailyratings.com. All right, Vin, with that, let's move on to our last two films of the week. I think we're going to start with Borderlands. I'm just going to go ahead and take a guess on that one.
Yeah, please.
This film is called Borderlands. It is a stacked cast. It looks like there's all kinds of fun CGI and pyrotechnics in this film.
No, sure.
But why don't you set it up? Why does this exist? Where does Borderlands even come from? And take it away.
Well, my quick and dirty on this one is, this movie was a vortex of shit. Like a vortex. My first reaction to this when I saw the trailer is this real? And I'm pretty sure I asked that question several times while watching the movie as well, so not off to a great start. There are so many factors working against this. It's staggering, honestly. So let's break a few down. And first, it's coming into the video game space. The video game movies, I feel like, are on the edge of a great run. Mostly gone are the days of game adaptations that waver from the true story or the experience of playing the game. I think on the TV front, you see all forms of this, good and bad. On the good side, you have things like Last of Us and Fallout doing their best to capture the feeling of the game.
Yeah. Last
of Us, story-wise, even holding true to its controversial turn for Season 2 and the second game. So interesting to see where that's playing out. We also have dumpster fires like the Halo show, confoundingly trying to blaze their own path in telling a story that serves no one, especially not existing fans.
What a letdown.
Yeah.
I really feel
I'm
bad.
so glad it's canceled.
Is it?
Season 2, yeah.
Because I hear Season 2 was better than 1.
Sure.
I tried to watch them both. I tried like 3 separate times to give it a watch. I feel terrible for Xbox lovers. Fans of Halo.
Like the entire
so
gaming universe is Halo. Yeah. So it's tough. But the key thing that I'm trying to illustrate here is that more money thrown at these projects does not result in quality. A great example of a faithful adaptation, but still shitty as a result, is the latest Resident Evil movie from 2021. Welcome to Raccoon City, promising a departure from the certifiably insane Mila Jovovich movies. If we ever have to cover like So Bad It's Good,
There's like 5 of them, right?
Yeah, they're terrible. But still highlighted that the game story of Resident Evil might not just be meant for the big screen. It's a pretty crazy story. So it just might not translate to a film adaptation or show adaptation. So that brings us to the question, why adapt Borderlands? A game that is about finding endless crazy guns and going on endless adventures in an endless wasteland.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. It's a looter shooter.
Is it like Mad Max then? Like, is the game kind of Mad Max-y?
Definitely Mad Max inspired in terms of like the wasteland aspect.
Okay.
Pulling from that type of desert post-apocalyptic.
Yeah. Just trying to tether something so we kind of know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. But like I said in the previous episode, looter shooters don't usually have good story. It's about just the hamster wheel, keeping you playing the game.
Right.
So why the hell did they think a movie was the way to adapt this? Maybe more importantly, this comes from the mess himself, related to our trashy director, Eli Roth. Though the movie Thanksgiving released last year kind of struck a self-aware balance to make a cult hit, Borderlands has none of what worked there, mostly outside of his slasher horror comfort zone for our director. If anything, Roth has a long history of taking his movie projects and trying to rip off very one specific quality from older films. We actually touched upon this a fair amount in our Thanksgiving review, if you want to go back and listen to that, folks. However, here...
Movie Thanksgiving.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, no, it was around Thanksgiving, I think.
I
But
think it was, yeah.
Here, however, the biggest influence, without a doubt, comes from a more recent example, James Gunn movies, specifically trying to emulate the ragtag group brought together to love each other by the end. I mean, folks, to call this a copycat of Guardians of the Galaxy or even Suicide Squad 2021 doesn't even come close, and frankly, would be an insult to compare to them. I mean, that's coming from me. I'm not even the biggest James Gunn fan.
Certainly.
Right, certainly.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. But, like, to call what he does and is able to take silly and kind of create meaningful in his films, to compare this to it would be an insult to all of James Gunn's work. Eli Roth is a trash director because of quality, but because he recycles these qualities from other films, and not too far off from someone like Zack Snyder in that capacity. But where this approach sours even more is that it feels like a studio-guided decision to rip off comic book movies, both for financial success and especially over style and story. You know, I have no doubt Roth is capable of saying, oh, we got a, crazy bunch of wisecrackers that shoot guns and it's a little bloody. It sounds like a James Gunn movie. I have no doubt he can make that connection. I feel like there's a more sinister angle as far as the studio and Gearbox wanting to capitalize on that market, capitalize on that subgenre of films, the gun type of comic book property.
Right. And also, I bet it's the studio thinking that they're crazy enough that they can also capture the huge market as far as the fan base goes for the game. It's like, oh, we'll just do this. We'll make it a $110 million budget, explosions, bunch of guns, right? Kind of makes Suicide Squad-y.
Yep.
I bet the studios thought they had gold here.
Yeah. Absolutely. A layup of layups. Absolutely.
And it's just, correct me if I'm wrong, and again, I'm not in that space as far as games and stuff. When this got announced and as things about it were coming out, like the trailer, correct me if I'm wrong, no one was excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, Borderlands definitely has a following, but it's kind of been there, done that. The last game, I think, came out pre-COVID. So it also feels like... I mean, the popularity is not in the zeitgeist of gamers. You know what I mean? It's not in the collective, excitement. And not only that, those casting decisions are like, who the wanted these people in these roles?
It's a huge cast.
Yeah, it's just like, who wanted this?
Really got a bone to pick with Cate Blanchett lately.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just like, what are you doing?
No, what are you doing is exactly what I was saying.
You're wasting yourself here.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
As far as the setup here, Borderlands is a sci-fi adventure structuring a motley crew of weirdos to jump from set piece pulled from the game's world. The discovery of intergalactic treasure vaults creates a gold rush of sorts for mercenaries and psychos alike, all traveling to the planet Pandora.
What?
Yeah. Folks, this could not be any further from the Pandora we know of Avatar. It's an apocalyptic wasteland that fuels madness in a desperate search for loot. So I think bookending it or dog-earing it, I don't know, like a Mad Max makes perfect sense. That really is.
I'm picking up on visuals and how poppy this is and the CGI. I'm also getting serious Expendables vibe.
Oh, yeah, especially the last Expendables that tried a similar kind of confetti cannon aesthetic to it.
Great way to say it, yeah.
Yeah. Cate Blanchett plays Lilith, a vault-hunting merc that is hired to track down a group that has gone rogue. Previously, Kevin Hart was hired to find the obnoxious Tiny Tina, played by Ariana Greenblatt, who is a living key to unlocking the vault. But hey, keys. What do you know? The gang also needs to track down 3 keys, because... I don't know. Writers don't write sometimes, I guess.
It's all about keys.
It's always the keys.
Keys are always the MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Always the MacGuffin.
Oh, man. I hate multiple keys. Oh, man. The plot just goes on and on and on. And while this might be the real estate for showing the game's locale to be thrown in our face, the story seriously meanders when it gets to the end of any plot beat. That the writing just extends out for more rope. Just keeps on extending the rope more and more. And it's just like, oh my God, like, did I want this to be over?
Wow.
Despite like almost any other factor, it's just like...
Not even that long.
It's not even that long.
Hour and 42.
Yeah. The longest lunch movie I ever saw. There's a big cast on this one. Without a doubt, what's going to grab those curious beyond the games market. So I'm sure this will go on to haunt everyone's career, so let's go through them.
Yes, please.
Kevin Hart jokes are Kevin Hart jokes for the entire movie. I mean, this includes a short joke, I'm talking milliseconds, from when he first shows up on screen. It's just like, I don't know if he even finds it funny anymore, so... Jack Black isn't a terrible choice at Claptrap. Claptrap is like a robot mascot of the game franchise, intentionally annoying.
So we get voice. We
Yes.
get voice Jack Black.
Exactly. I think the problem is just the character is supposed to be intentionally annoying. So it's not really Jack Black's fault, but it is what it is. Ariana Greenblatt, same type of scenario. Tiny Tina, she's suffering from an intentionally annoying role. But coming off projects like 65 and Barbie, I was curious to see what her next move would be. This isn't a great one. Maybe she can recover. Hopefully she can recover. Jamie Lee Curtis feels annoyingly out of place. Also has a kind of a tasteless on the spectrum acting choice, which only compounds how inappropriately old she feels like in this movie. Oh yeah,
That's really a character.
I think that's what it's going for. Okay. I mean, granted, I don't know the character in the game. But...
Okay. You have said this about one other movie.
Oh, really?
With an actor, and then just like it turns out he wasn't trying to do anything on the spectrum. Which is funny commentary. I mean, that's how you felt.
Right. There's something going on
but
here.
It's that bad.
Yeah. Maybe when I say that, I just mean it's really bad.
Okay. Jamie Lee too. What are you doing, Jamie Lee? Come on.
I know.
She got supporting actress, correct?
Yeah.
For Everything Everywhere.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Got a great point. I completely forgot about that. When it comes to that topic of too old to play in the sandbox, Cate Blanchett is by far the most confusing choice of all. You know, straight up just way too old for this role.
Oh, really?
And as you know, such an unusual backstep in her career choice. I mean, it really blows my mind. We are 2 years off of her acting her ass off in Tar, and this is the move? No thanks.
Hey, money. Money doesn't talk; it sings.
Freaking
screams, man.
I think that's a good trans. I think that's a good transition. This box office wise has been like abysmal, right?
I didn't even see it.
I think it's like.
Real quick.
I don't know if this is exaggerating, but I think it's like not over like 10 million.
It's 8.6 million in the opening weekend.
That's insane.
Twister still beat it out. Yes.
Come on, Oklahoma City. Get out there.
By the way, it ends with us. What that couple is Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds crushing it.
They
this
saw
weekend.
July. They say that's ours.
Their bank account's doing just fine.
Yeah. Maybe we'll cover that. We have a dead spot end of the month.
It ends with that $50 million.
Wow.
Opening weekend, just some love story.
Wow.
Deadpool Wolverine 53.8.
Still.
So Borderlands was the new movie, 8.6 million.
And squashed by more than one. I think it would be wrong for me to pin it all on one thing like casting, though, because the film stumbles in almost every conceivable way you could imagine. The green screen around vehicles is atrocious. Feeling very disconnected despite so much PR for this goddamn film leaning into the use of practical effects. That's the buzzword of the summer is practical effects. And we'll definitely touch on this. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't
I'm watching clips of this film.
It doesn't even work as a lie.
I was going to say, it looks worse than the video game.
Yeah, for real. At least the video game is like cel-shaded and stuff. But man,
Practical effects, my ass.
Yeah, they just picked up on Alien getting hyped for practical effects. They're like, oh yeah, we have practical effects too.
Yeah.
It's terrible. There's a lot of these driving scenes because it's one of the main gameplay features of Borderlands, and all of them look bad. I mean, like, all of them look bad. Guns are also what the series is known most for, though. The fun action is something I had hopes that Eli Roth could just kind of pull off. This is a game series, I should say, that markets itself as having a gazillion guns. So I had hopes seeing some wacky out there designs. You know, maybe that's where the comedy comes from, of like, I don't know, a gun that shoots anything, you know? Mm-hmm. Nope, none to be found here. In fact, you know, the one aspect that this gets correct from the ripped-off Marvel formula is how it shits the bed on its own action scenes by cheapening the stakes, you know? That either comes from, like, a joke or just the bullets meaning nothing. And I feel like both are, like, real big failures. The jokes, whatever, I knew they weren't going to work for me. I feel like that's going to really just depend on the audience and probably like die-hard Borderlands fans. But I personally think the stakes of the action are ruined by just bullets meaning nothing. No matter how crazy the gun was or how intimidating the opposition is, I can guarantee you that not a single action sequence you will feel anything for because there are zero stakes. I was so thankful I could watch something within the same week that I could point to and say, that's how you make stakes in action. And that's Let the Corpses Tan.
Yeah.
Here, I mean, like, obviously these characters have plot armor for the potential franchising opportunities of, like, a Tiny Tina spinoff or a Kevin Hart spinoff with a different crew. To say that there's no stakes in the action, though, I mean, it goes beyond that. Like, I never felt anything.
I don't doubt that for a second. I mean,
just like, it's not even visual candy because the guns are boring.
Right.
It's just terrible.
And the CGI.
Right. The fake practical effects. Tom, my final note I wrote was the amount of things this pulls out of its ass. And funny enough, I honestly don't know what I meant by that. Usually I'm pretty good with, you know, the moments I write it down. I think it was just frustration with how much the plot gets, like, dragged out. Like, you know, extending the leash is really the action, the visual I want to communicate of, like, how this story feels. Folks, I think in concept, this could have been a raunchier approach to Guardians of the Galaxy. Maybe even lean into an R rating instead of PG-13. I think that's a misstep. I mean, the games are rated M, so I don't know what was going on there. But it gets everything wrong in the James Gunn formula and ruins almost every moment it has going for it by focusing on either cheap jokes or annoying banter. Most of all, it is an experience I will hardly remember seeing after this week, and I think that might show in me not remembering what that last note was referring to. We're going to go ahead and give Borderlands a 22.
22? That almost seems high, Vin. Don't be, you know,
No. It's a 22. It's a 22. Okay. I put a lot of thought.
Saying the teens exist, you know.
yeah. I put a lot of thought.
Very low score. Very low score for us.
Specifically around the teens, I think, like, at that point, I think of, like, a Catwoman, or I think
Catwoman was at, like, a
8,
7 or 8%.
Yeah. I think,
that's
like,
a single digit. When you're below 10, you're failing as a
right. It's breaking down. It's deteriorating.
Right, there's truths that there needs to be around film, and they're breaking the rules of that.
Yeah.
The teens, I feel like you get. Well, some of those Godzilla ones got into the teens.
yeah, because they're just irredeemable.
Right.
But yeah, I think this still had the structure of a movie. It just was really bad, you know, like horrifically bad.
22% is a very bad score, folks. If you're listening, I mean, if you are new to the podcast, 22 obviously very low for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But if you are at 82, that's extremely good.
Absolutely.
When you're at an 85, that's what we kind of think. For any audience, this is kind of a must-watch to see before you die type of stuff.
Absolutely.
Just above 85%. So 82 is really good. We got the Spectrum. Talk about the Spectrum. This is the episode. Borderlands, avoid it at all costs.
It's
it
tough.
seems like it doesn't even seem like so bad. It's good. It doesn't even seem like
No.
you got the boys over, throw it on.
Right. No, I mean, if there's a movie for that, it's Let the Corpse Tan. That could be a boys' watch.
Should we add it to the compilation?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
I think another compilation one is 24-hour films, like one-day
Oh,
movies.
hell yeah, absolutely.
Because we already have a few in the can from this
Like
year.
I said, I've been oddly craving to watch Speed. I've never seen Speed before.
Well, you know the director.
Yeah, John DeBone.
Yeah,
yeah.
or the guy who made Twister, yeah.
Yeah, so that might be in the coming weeks. I don't know.
Okay.
So.
Real quick, with Eli Roth, the director of Borderlands, the only thing I want to say is I think that maybe we should give 2018's remake of Death Wish.
Oh.
So Death Wish was an old movie from the
course.
70s, I think, with Bronson,
Yep,
Charles
yep.
Bronson. And this was one of the last films with Bruce Willis, where he's really doing well.
Yep.
And I hear kind of the beginning of that film and first half of that film is quite good.
Interesting.
I hear it goes off a little bit towards the end, but some great action from my understanding.
Yeah.
It might be worth a watch, one for Bruce, and maybe
Maybe
to
a
get
redemption of Eli Roth.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Not that he's deserving of it from us.
Sure. I will say, as far as a credit there, it's probably an easier task to do a type of adaptation like that, a reboot like Death Wish, especially with something so old. I mean,
We have guardrails.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
well, not that you don't have Borderlands, but it's a lot different to take.
Yeah.
To do movie to movie than video game to movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, folks, if I can communicate anything, Borderlands never, in the course of 3, maybe even 4 games, never had a story worth adapting for the screen.
Wow.
And I feel like, again, it's just, video game movies, they're on a really good run right now. There's a lot of money
I want
potentially
to maybe
being
push
made.
back on that.
Okay.
Video game movies on a good run. Describe that. Like what?
Super Mario being box office records, Last of Us and Fallout, just as far as like faithful adaptations, still actually good.
So screen, not necessarily movies, but
Yeah.
TV movies might be doing okay.
The task of adapting video games into a story medium
Prince of
specifically.
Persia's coming back
No way,
maybe
really?
next year, 2026.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
So
Yeah, maybe also look to the quality of your game studios as well as an indicator there.
okay, all right. Let's keep things moving here. We're still in theaters now. This film is getting talked about a little bit. This is again. I mean, there's some short films here. It's an hour and 42. This one is rated R. We have another horror movie up. Directed by Tillman Singer. Don't know anything about. What else was I going to say about this film? Cuckoo. I don't know. The film was Cuckoo. And every time I hear this film, all I do is think about Inspector. Or is it, yeah.
Like the James Bond Inspector?
When Christoph Waltz just goes, cuckoo. It's just in my head every time I look at
Yeah, well, just anything that Christoph Waltz says.
this. Anyway, Cuckoo, rated R, hour and 42. Just tell us what it's about, Ben.
Cuckoo is a movie I was really excited to see, and even though it had some kind of amateur qualities to it, is something I can't wait to check out again. Once again, let me rep it for horror movies this year, because with Alien looking good for next week, I think 2024 has been incredible for the genre. And something that I don't kind of hear being talked about, and that's where I want to rep it. Having some time to stew on Long Legs, I have slightly some regret in not praising the visuals of that movie more. I definitely did praise.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Yeah. There's just been a lot of spoiler discussion around it, and something I legit didn't catch was how much is hidden in the background to unnerve the viewer in that movie. So definitely worth a rewatch. First Omen as well is something I've come to appreciate even more in the months following our very positive review of it, which no one saw it. So, something I genuinely hope just doesn't get lost in the wave of Catholic-themed horrors, cool Catholic projects that we've seen, all nestled somewhere under Russell Crowe's lingering man boobs. Too brutal? No.
You're good.
Okay, all right. But Cuckoo, man, this movie is just such an interesting kind of teen angle that I especially want to recommend it to younger audiences interested in horror, because regardless if you're sneaking into the theater or catching it at home, is really worth your time. I thought this was a really awesome movie. Tillman Singer is a German writer and director, brand spanking new for most audiences, myself included. He's got 2 shorts and a feature under his belt. And that feature would be 2018's Lulz, relative no-name production, but looks to be stylish and maybe something we can cover in the future. But this is exactly why I love giving new directors a shot, because this looked to be one of the slickest horror movies of the summer and turned out to be a fantastic first impression for how original the experience felt. I really... there's some kind of genre comparisons. I feel like Cuckoo was completely on its own and in a very good way for that reason. So much so that I feel the reception of the film online just does not know what to make of it. And I think that's okay. I've been in that position as well.
I went to a couple deep dives in this one.
Yeah.
And I found another critic that I kind of like, a writing critic, not a podcast or anything.
Sure.
And this kind of seemed like... This goes places.
Yes.
And kind of has you scratching your head, and maybe you got to pay attention or try to figure out some stuff on your own.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Best way I can introduce this is talk about a cuckoo. A cuckoo is an interesting bird that specifically doesn't build nests to lay eggs. Instead, the cuckoo will sneak their eggs into other birds' nests, often pushing baby birds out to make room for their offspring, their brood. That's what's referred to. And so we see this movie titled Cuckoo, steeped in teen angst as the punk rock youth Gretchen, played by Hunter Schafer, is going under a transition of living space where her new half-sister takes the full attention of her family. The horror is unexpectedly themed around sisterhood, which, again, one of the many interesting angles that I feel like this is new ground, and comes together in a seriously great way. I think the key to my praise on why this is so refreshing to watch is that it goes a different angle that's so much competition on the block, so much competition in what you always note, Tom, another horror movie.
Yeah.
It's not even trying to compete in that same sphere. It's going for its own thing, and I feel like was really, really great for that reason.
Focus on storytelling.
Yes.
Not just the shock and awe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let the horror come through your storytelling. And that's where this was at. Her father is relocated to a luxurious resort in the German Alps, assigned to redesign the facility, but things appear to be a bit too self-contained, as the resort has everything from a full medical facility, nature preserve, and tourist villas, all suspiciously empty. Dan Stevens plays Herr Konig, a nightmare German eugenicist that plays the flute and runs the whole facility, kind of like a fucked up Willy Wonka, and it is amazing. I've heard a lot of praise for Dan Stevens online. He was in that Abigail movie. Apparently, he played Beast in the live-action Beauty and the Beast with Emma Watson. I've never seen him before. He's got a fan because he was great.
Okay, now is it just me or him on screen? Are you saying to yourself Bradley Cooper a little bit?
No,
his looks.
No,
these are just from shots then and some clips I was watching.
Sure.
Okay, all right.
I mean, potentially, I'm only going with this. I mean, I saw crazy Nazi scientists.
Okay, no, that's awesome. Then that's awesome because I was side eyeing as far as just like bargain bin Bradley.
Yeah,
no,
sure.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Gretchen has no interest in unraveling a mystery, no less defending her sister that she hates, but quickly she finds that this resort is as strange as it gets and is driven to madness when her experiences get ignored. Tom, I got a lot of love for this one. Hunter Schafer was excellent. She knocked this performance out of the park. She plays a moody punk rock teen, not particularly difficult, but something that she was able to balance with really emotionally intense scenes in a surprising way. Acting-wise, she comes from Euphoria and further proves that every star of that goddamn show is going to have a big career.
They're going
moving
somewhere.
forward.
Yeah, 25 years old.
Yeah. She was also in the latest Hunger Game prequel, as well as Kinds of Kindness, which we recently covered.
Yeah.
I really can't... I remember her slightly in Hunger Games. I cannot, for the life of me, think of her, of who she was in Kinds of Kindness. So be it. But the character Gretchen deserves equal praise because the writing feels so natural. When comedic moments come up, it's often because she delivers a line like a real teen would. And in a lot of ways, that aspect reminded me of qualities you'd see in Scott Pilgrim or even the better parts, and emphasis on better parts, of Drive Away Dolls from earlier this year. That it's just like the writing feels fun, natural, and like makes you laugh by not trying to make you laugh,
right.
you know?
Yeah. It doesn't seem like it was written by an adult.
Yeah, exactly. She's a bass player to a punk band, which then informs decisions made about the soundtrack, focusing on bass and like feedback noise from like an open, aux cable. I also don't compliment costume work too much, but I really love the progression of her look throughout the film. It almost had a zombie movie quality where the tools she picks up along the way start just appearing on her, and without making a big thing of it. I thought it was very cool. It had an interesting progressing element to that. As far as my praise of the horror, though, it has been a while since I talked about horror fundamentals, and we definitely stumble upon an example here. That being the undeniable fact that Germans are just scarier, especially when you don't understand what they're yelling about.
They're always scary.
Yeah. I mean, this is coming from me, who gave the hot take that Zone of Interest was a horror movie first, and I stand by that still. Dan Stevens is, obviously an evil German scientist from the get-go, but many performances have the same quality, making us suspicious of even the quote-unquote good guys. I think where this worked so well was how genuinely weird every single character was. One of my earliest notes for this was that the Twin Peaks vibes were just through the roof. And this David Lynch feeling just comes from how strange everyone is. I feel like that strangeness, we in recent episodes we've talked about dread, we've talked about how horror is built. These moments of strangeness, of suspicion, is how the horror is built up in this. And that suspicion element, I feel like, is just as unnerving when it comes to it. Even the slight moments of comedy are delivered. Everything is intentionally offbeat and designed to build suspicion. And I feel like that's where the follow-through with the theming, everything, this was just fine-tuned, really fine-tuned. So where I was happy I made the right call by putting this alongside Longlegs and First Omen all comes down to the filmmaking itself, though. Editing clips along with a stream of conscious style, blinking around sporadically. And so many shots aren't necessarily scary on their own, but communicate fear so effectively. A great example of this is a shot of Dan Stevens moving closer on like a rolling desk chair, like a wheelie chair. And the shot of it is just focusing on his legs, like slowly crawling himself forward. Something we all do when sitting on a desk chair, but how it's staged is so malicious, so evil in its intent. And that is how fear is conducted throughout the film. It's the little unexpected moments, the strange moments that just slowly start to unnerve you. There's so many. The filmmaking has so many of these moments throughout the film. I'll make one critique towards the end of the film. We are maybe shown a bit too much of that. The scare factor dwindles down a bit. We're shown maybe a little bit too close to what is actually supposed to be the horror. But for me, it was all in the atmosphere of this one, and that didn't break towards the end. Overall, I think this comes out as a better version of a handful of other horrors, mostly for how it ties its themes together. Not bashing these directors. I like both of these directors, but specifically Anthony Scott Burns' Come True from 2020, and also Panos Cosmatos for Beyond the Black Rainbow from 2010. All of them kind of exist in this like evil science facility type of vibe.
Yeah.
This one just has follow-through that both of those films just don't have. Also, Cosmatos is the guy that did Mandy. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
It's his first film, Beyond the Black Rainbow. Very trippy. Same with Come True. Very trippy, very surreal, but just doesn't necessarily... Yeah, it doesn't follow through in a meaningful way. This had some meaning to it. If last year we gave praise to Celine Song for being a rookie director with a big first impression, Tillman Singer gets this from a fantastic fresh take on horror, and I honestly cannot wait to see what's next.
Wow.
We're going to go ahead and give Cuckoo a 79.
79%?
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I think last year, 79% might have been the highest score for a new horror release.
Sure.
And we covered a lot of them last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
There were a lot all throughout the year last year.
Absolutely.
So 79% for horror, I think that matches that was it Evil Rise? The next?
Oh yeah, Evil Dead Rise definitely got 79.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as new horror coming out,
yeah.
Great score.
Absolutely.
That's a great. I love that you like this film.
Yeah. I also like. That's where I said in the beginning, like this was a pretty great week. Except for Borderlands.
Right.
You know, I mean, like, if we didn't have Borderlands, like, this would be...
You enjoyed this. I mean, you were having a good time with this.
Absolutely. Snappy movies, and just interesting takes. Interesting, just for specifically for Cuckoo, I feel like there's... I can't think of a movie that has sisterhood as a concept, no less this cuckoo bird allegory, and then how that twists and has paranoia and suspicion as its flavor of horror.
Is this heavier horror or heavier psychological thriller?
Definitely psychological thriller.
Okay.
And also where I would say it's a good gateway horror. I mean, it's rated R. I'm glad it's rated R.
Yeah, I bet.
But I feel like this is perfect for kind of a teen audience. Which, I guess, I don't know, not for me to decide of how they see it, but definitely worth it as far as if you have maybe a younger person in your life, folks, that is interested in horror. This one's a good one. Because I think the themes are really follow through in a meaningful way.
Wow, excellent, Vin. 79% for Cuckoo. It is in theaters. I don't know how many, but I think it's pretty wide release.
I think so.
And overall, getting relatively positive reviews.
Yeah,
it seems like, which is cool. So go ahead and check it out. I'm sure it'll be coming to a video on demand soon enough.
Sure.
Very cool. By the way, budget $7 million. You're under that $10 million, which is just awesome.
Absolutely. I'd love to see it.
The real question is, did you learn more about birds watching Cuckoo or bees watching The Beekeeper?
Oh, definitely birds watching Cuckoo.
Really?
Yeah. Because
that surprises me.
You have a German man dictating it to you.
Okay. Very good.
Well, Beekeeper. Wow, that's a flash. I mean, that's this year, and it's just like that feels like an eternity ago.
All right, Vin, very good. As we finish this up, any more notes you want to hit on? Anything for the upcoming weeks? Roll credits? What do you want to do?
We have Alien next week. We're going to be doing Prometheus, Alien Covenant. That's great to hear from you.
Yeah.
Prometheus, Alien Covenant, and Alien Romulus. I guess the elephant in the room is that why not cover what is clearly one of my favorite films, the first Alien of 1979. I think we're both in agreement that we want something a little bit more special for the original Alien run, the first 4 films.
Like you said, it's on the site. It is a must-watch. It's in the 90s percentile.
Yeah.
And kind of like what we did with No Country this year, when you're in the 90s, we want to do a special ode, spend more time and do a full-on special for those special films.
Yeah. I also think that original 4 movies is such an interesting study of individual directors touching the franchise. You obviously have Ridley Scott, but then it goes to James Cameron, then it goes to, I think, Fincher, then at some point, is it Josh Whedon or something like that? But, you know, there's a lot of different director voices. Once we get to Prometheus, it's old Ridley Scott once again. Yeah. I mean, I'm frankly surprised he's not making this in addition to Gladiator 2.
That's so true.
So, let's take our blessing there. But that's at least, that's the elephant in the room as far as this Alien Romulus definitely takes place between 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's the note to say, yeah.
Yeah. So, we're just going to be saving that, and I'm frankly excited to... I don't know, maybe not excited. I think Prometheus has a bad score.
We need to get them on the site. Because not all of them are rated on the site. Now,
Sure.
Alien and Aliens are on there. So that's another reason why we don't necessarily need to hit them.
True.
But we'll hit the prequels, the 3 latest ones, which are also the lead up to Aliens. Maybe we'll give a quick synopsis of Alien and then jump into Alien Romulus.
Yeah, yep.
Which Romulus is a Star Trek related thing too. Correct?
Yeah. Romulans are they're like the evil Vulcans, basically. They're like evil Spock.
Right. They're in the 2009 Star Trek movie, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I love when you key into specific things that we've experienced together. As far as like, I remember going to that premiere for Star Trek. I think it was in 2009.
That was beyond. No, that was.
That was the second one.
That was Khan.
Oh, yeah. we got those great posters.
We did get those posters.
Yeah.
Okay, Ben. All right. Thank you so much. Excited for Aliens.
Yeah.
Really excited for the Alien episode next week. Actually, kind of big time. So, folks, watch along. Now that apparently does have special effects. I mean, practical effects. Like went out of their way to do practical effects. So kind of cool. Kind of looking forward to that one.
Absolutely.
Other than that, Vin, I just have one other note to say. Which Sunday I went and I hydrated. I got ready and I went to go see Lawrence of Arabia.
No, you did
in theaters. Yeah, because they were playing it at AMC.
Yeah.
And Lawrence of Arabia, so basically, yeah, I got to see it on the big screen. Never seen it before in my life.
Sure.
And
I've only seen parts.
Was very happy to see it. Very happy to see it. It was over 4 hours in length because there was a 15-minute intermission. It started at 1, 15 minutes of previews.
It's still?
And then, yeah.
What
it wasn't
did they do?
25 minutes.
Sure.
It could have been longer. But 15 minutes of previews, a large chunk in the movie, 15-minute intermission, the finishing of the movie. And basically, it's crazy how much it is Dune. I mean, I came away and I was just like, I guess I saw Dune Messiah. So I'm good to go.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, probably an inspiration for Frank Herbert. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that, they were also similar filming locations, and I knew that was a big talk, especially for Dune 2.
Yep.
But boy, watching this, I was just like, it was a joy to watch.
That's great.
I didn't come away loving the
Sure,
story.
sure.
That was definitely slow and getting
In 4 hours.
going. Right. But there is some reward. There was some rewards there to
I think that's
watch
awesome.
it, and then to see it on the big screen was kind of cool.
Like I said multiple times through the year, I love that you're diving into
my
your
own.
own. Yeah, he's going rogue.
You still got me on a leash, so don't worry.
He's going rogue. No, but I really love that. Definitely will want to cover it at some point.
Yeah,
That's just
it's a
another
big
one of those
movie.
things
It's a
like,
big
where do
old
we
movie.
layer that? That's not like a normal week watch.
We'll have one week where we'll do Ben-Hur, Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, maybe Dr. Zhivago.
We'll do, what is that? The Jesus one that people love that was like over 4 hours long?
That's
That's really well known.
I don't know.
But those films.
Yeah.
Also-
Gone with the Wind, maybe, or something
Sure,
like that.
those-
The super, super classics.
And long. One other note, I didn't really know that AMC is really picking up on this. So on their Sundays, and I think sometimes Sundays and Mondays, almost each week, they'll do a re-release.
Yeah.
And I know there's always specials, like a 10th anniversary of Coraline is coming out.
Oh, right.
But oftentimes they'll play older films or big films, and I think we should maybe keep an eye on that. Just for
Sure.
me and you to go see old classics in the big screen.
Yeah.
I think it's just for how much
The
film,
rare opportunity.
I think it's fun for us.
Yeah.
For how much film we watch, especially you, we can watch some of these cool films like they were intended, which is nice.
Yeah, I like that also in the extent that, it might be awkward to place Lawrence of Arabia somewhere in a random week, but if we have the excuse of like, hey, it was in the theater, like that's
Right.
good enough, and I want to cover it, so.
Pretty cool, though.
That's great. I'm glad you did. Wow. 4 hours.
Yeah, it was over 4 hours. All right, Ben, thank you so much for watching these. We're going to get out of here. But first, folks, we'll just run this down one more time. We have the Cowboys with a 71% and a 2 shoes polished. We have Let the Corpses Tan with an 82%. Borderlands with a 20. Yeah, borderline horrible. Borderlands with a 22%. And Cuckoo with a 79%. Folks, thank you so much for listening. John, thank you for being executive producer of this episode. And we will see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. And hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or get the word out and tell a friend about us. And just a reminder that the Daily Ratings is completely producer supported. We want to stay away from advertising, and we don't want to have any paywalls or tier structures or subscriptions. It's all just value for value. So, are you finding value in any of the things that we're doing here at the Daily Ratings? Then become a producer and donate whatever amount of value that is. Just go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com, and while you're there, be sure to check out the massive amount of films that Vince has rated. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast.